Hello, welcome back to Ideas in Photography. Well, today I want to talk about light, mainly because I forgot about it last time. Now, the first thing photographers are fascinated with is actually how much light is there, what's going on. And we do that and we measure that through the International Standards Organization rating, which is ISO, which is 400 ISO, 200 ISO, 400 ISO. And that measures the actual amount of light that is physically coming into the room, or indeed elsewhere. Now, I actually think now that's not as important as it used to be, because the camera sensors that's coming out, like has just introduced a new camera body, the M10, which goes up to 50,000 ISO. So really, we don't need to know much about that. But we have the camera sensors and they measure that. Now, the next thing they want to know is about the color of light. Color is important because we've got white balance. A white balance is when the camera looks as a piece of grey. And here you have the back of this book. You can see that Dan Winters has used grey for that. So this is about an 18% grey. And you pick that up and you tell the camera mathematically, put this down, what that colour is. Because what you're doing is very subtle. Now I'm going to switch my two lights off in the room and so you can pick up the quite yellow light that's coming in from outside. So you can see the colour has subtly shifted when I did that, because we've got quite yellow light coming in as opposed to the more white light coming from the two lights in here. And obviously the camera's balanced itself to the two lights that are actually in the room. I'll put them on again. Okay, and so there's been a subtle shift. Perhaps that's too subtle to see, so let's change the light source. Let's put in this light here. You can see this is an LED torch I have, and you can see that my face is, well, a bit odd. Okay, so that's another thing to see about light. Now let's look at something else. Now, the camera I'm using, it's a bit odd to have this, but it's got a night light system. Now I can't show you that here because it's daylight, but I can show you what I did last night with it. This is really odd. As you can see, I'm a very strange colour, not even sure I'm in focus. I've got direct light coming from the camera, but I can't see it. The camera sensor has turned it into an area, a way that you can see it. So as you can see, it's not just the visual spectrum of light that handles. Light has different colours, both ends of the spectrum, and it handles differently. So colour of light is important. It's how the sensors, the film, see it that is also important. So back to normal running. That was a bit odd, wasn't it? So we measure light in actual fact by Kelvin. Now, the correct setting for daylight is 5,500 Kelvin, and that's actually a measurement. You can actually get a color meter and actually give you that in detail. You can also see that in Photoshop and Capture One, where the computer program will tell you the color temperature. The easiest way to help these programs is put a standard in, and I'll pick up my Dan Winter book, and I don't think there's any surprise that he's chosen this grey here. And you hold that up to your subject, you take your picture, and then you go to Capture One or Photoshop and click on it, and the computer program will know when you clicked on the grey card that that is your correct temperature for the whole area, and it'll put it into shape. It's very good, it's very easy. When you do it correctly, the pictures will look really good. So you need to be very clear and understand what the colour of light you're using. Now, of course, with modern digital cameras, we're working in low light conditions. You can actually take great shots on low light and work with the colour and make a really good image just engaging with the colour of light. It's something I love doing, low light conditions, nighttime, dusk, etc. And you will know this regularly because cinematographers shoot in the period between dawn and daylight, and they're called the golden hour, where they get the best, beautiful golden light. We can spend a lot of time in that, and I would recommend you look at a book here called Light, Science and Magic, and that describes all of the things I'm talking about. Alright, so there's one other thing to think about in light. And aside with the amount of light coming in, which usually sets your F number, along with the shutter speed of course, and the colour of light, which the camera then sets through the colour settings on it. The other one, and perhaps the most important one for studio photographers, is the contrast. And that's the difference between light and dark. Now, here in this room, I've deliberately put my light onto the walls, so I don't have a very I've like quite a low contrast. There's not much difference between the shadows and the highlights. It's pretty even. But I switched my big torch on again. You can see coming in from the bottom, clunk, sorry about that, coming in from the bottom, you can see there's a difference between the bits that hit by the light and the stuff that hasn't got the shadow areas. That's the contrast between light and shadow. And that's defined by the actual size of the light hitting me. So basically, let me switch this off. The sun is a tiny pinprick of light sometimes. You get very hard shadows, and you can see that really strong shadows that you can get at this time of year, particularly in Hamilton Towers. Now that's because the sun is quite a small thing. In fact, it's about the size of this little torch here. Yeah, I'll switch it off. You know, a tiny torch. And that's about the size of the winter sun, the summer sun in the sky. It's very bright, gives very strong shadows. Now when you put a softbox in, or cloud, the light becomes very large. So my light is going into the wall of my room here, and it's a very large light source. So I'm just looking at it, probably about 6 foot square on both sides. And that's giving you quite a shadowless area. So it's to do with the size of the light. The smaller the light, the more actual shadow. The bigger the light, clouds, huge softbox, the less shadow. So you're controlling the contrast. And it's that controlling the contrast that is the key to studio photography. And that's something I'll come back to in a later video. So, ideas of photography, out.